This is Mission Control Houston. Welcome to Space Station Live. It is Tuesday, December 3rd, 2013. This is a live view inside the space station's flight control room here at the Johnson Space Center in Houston. This team is busy watching over the systems and the activities of the Expedition 38 crew on board the orbiting complex at this time. It's been a busy day for the crew. They got started earlier today by doing some onboard training, preparing for the upcoming Cygnus mission. This will be the first full-up cargo mission that's going to be flown by Orbital Sciences Corporation after their successful test flight back in September. But the Cygnus is already packed full of cargo on the ground at the Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia. It's going to be heading up to the International Space Station. That launch date currently scheduled for December 17th at 9:07 p.m. Central Time. That's going to be 10:07 p.m. Eastern Time. Of course, we'll have live coverage here on NASA television of all of those activities. Our broadcast that evening will begin at 8:45 p.m. Central Time. And then Cygnus is going to take a few days to get up to the International Space Station. That docking and that capture scheduled for December 20th. But the crew on board today, Rick Mastracchio, Koichi Wakata, and Mike Hopkins, have been busy doing that onboard training, practicing using the station's giant Canadarm2. That is what is used to reach out and grab onto Cygnus and install it on the underneath side of the Harmony node. That is where Cygnus will stay for about a month while the crew unpacks all the different cargo that's inside and stores it and packs it full of trash and other items that they no longer need. During those operations, Mike Hopkins is going to be the prime robot arm operator with Koichi Wakata backing him up. Rick Mastracchio will be there observing and helping and making sure that Cygnus is behaving the way that it is expected to. But they did run through some of that onboard training today. They had some meetings with the robotics and flight controllers here on the ground, and they will continue that in the days leading up to that mission. Again, Cygnus will launch on December 17th at 9:07 p.m. Central Time. We'll have live coverage here on NASA television at 8:45 p.m. Central Time, and then the capture is on December 20th. That should take place about 3 a.m. Central Time on the morning of the 20th. The crew also busy today unpacking another cargo vehicle, the Progress 53, that has newly arrived at the station. Progress 53 got up here last Friday and was docked at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. It is on the Zvezda service module there. You see at the far right-hand side of the screen. That is the Russian segment of the ISS. It's going to take some time to unpack all the different materials that the Progress brought up and deliver 2.9 tons of food, fuel, and supplies to the crew. That included 1,763 pounds of propellant, 48 pounds of oxygen, 57 pounds of air, 925 pounds of water, and 3,119 pounds of spare parts and experiment hardware. That Progress will stay docked at Zvezda until the middle of the year, in about June of 2014. Again, it will be packed full of trash and other items that the crew does not need anymore. And then once it says farewell, it will be deorbited and burned up in the Earth's atmosphere. Mike Hopkins also working today on the combustion integrated rack. This is one of the scientific racks on board the station. You're seeing video of this from earlier today. He had some maintenance activities to do on there. There you see Hopkins in the frame. But this CIR, the SEER as it's called, has a 100-liter combustion chamber inside. It can run combustion experiments at both low and high atmosphere. So basically they can take the pressure down to vacuum and do the experiments that way. Or they can take it up to about 3 times the atmosphere you would find here on Earth. So it's pretty adaptable. It can run experiments with droplets of fuel. It can do solid fuel. It can also do gaseous fuel, but you see some of the fuel tanks there that are strapped in. But the crew does have to do some routine maintenance on this huge rack that's inside the space station, as those fuel tanks do run out from time to time, so they swap them out and get that combustion integrated rack ready to go for some more experiments. Mike Hopkins and the rest of the crew are on social media. Of course, you can interact with them in the International Space Station. Hopkins, his Twitter address is @AstroIllini. That is ASTROILLINI, Astro Illini. That is his Twitter handle. Koichi Wakata is @Astro_Wakata. That is @Astro_Wakata, ASTRO_WAKATA. KATA. And then Rick Mastracchio is at AstroRM, ASTRORM. And of course, as always, you can follow us at NASA_Johnson. That is where we update you on the operations on board the International Space Station. You can also interact with our program here, Space Station Live, by just going to hashtag ISS or hashtag Space Station Live. And we will see if we can answer your questions here on the air. Coming up in just a few minutes, the crew is going to have an in-flight event. They're going to be speaking with a couple of different media outlets here on the ground. That'll begin at 10:20 a.m. Central Time. We'll have live coverage here on NASA TV of those conversations, but they're going to be speaking with CBS NewsPath. That is the CBS News affiliate program that feeds news to all the different CBS stations around the country. And then KOMU TV will be participating with the crew as well. But that's going to be Mike Hopkins, Rick Mastracchio, and Koichi Wakata. We'll have live coverage of that here on NASA TV beginning at 10:20 a.m. Central Time, 11:20 a.m. Eastern Time. Right now, the space station is high above Asia, about to exit out over the Pacific Ocean and make a pass down toward the southern tip of South America. As we always do, we encourage you to find out when you can spot the station in the night sky above your hometown. Just log on to spotthestation.nasa.gov. Once again, spotthestation.nasa.gov. Some of the passes last upwards of 4 minutes or so you've got a good chance to get out there and see it. Typically, it happens in the early evening or early morning hours, just as the sun has either gone down or is about to rise, where it's not in your eyes, but is lighting up the space station 260 miles up. So once again, go to spotthestation.nasa.gov to find out when you can see it above your hometown. And also, you can track other items as well. If you go to the NASA website, you sometimes can see Hubble flying overhead. It's a little bit dimmer than the space station is, but the station is pretty easy to spot if you know where to look, because typically it is one of the brightest objects in the night sky, other than the moon, and it moves fairly quickly above, but like we said, some of the passes are about 3 to 4 minutes. You've got a good chance to spot it.
And Rick, we've got you loud and clear on the wireless. And Rick, whenever you're ready, we'll be happy to take a standard voice count.
That is Scott Stover, the flight director there at the middle console. Mike Jensen sitting beside him as the Capcom. They're talking with the crew on board. They're just getting set up for this PAO event that we've got coming up at 10:20.
We're checking.
The crew is going to be speaking with CBS News Path and KOMU TV. They're going to be talking about life on board the station and what the crew's been up to since they've been up there on the orbiting complex.
To see if the video matches the audio. Otherwise, we've got the Japanese movie effect. Okay, guys, we've got a successful voice check, good sync, and Mr. Navius is asking if y'all can move a little bit Koichi-ward. And we're seeing good framing with the exception of Rick's tallness is putting the top of his head just a little bit out of view. Okay, guys, good audio, good video, good framing, and we'll be ready to start here in a handful of minutes. It looks like about 7 minutes. You guys want me to give you a call when you're about a minute out? Copy, thumbs up.
Scuba Station on 2 for velocity count.
This is Mission Control Houston again. We're coming up on an in-flight event at 10:20 a.m. Central Time, 11:20 a.m. Eastern Time, with the crew of Expedition 38 talking with a couple of different media outlets here on the ground. Earlier today, Mike Hopkins spoke with some students in Poland using the station's ham radio. Those classes have been studying about things in the night sky and also the International Space Station, but they got a chance to speak via ham radio with Hopkins about life on board the station. That ham radio is used quite a bit to reach out to students here on the ground. We're going to take a look now at one of NASA's Benefits for Humanity videos that was produced in honor of the station's 15th anniversary, speaking about a certain student in Illinois who was impacted by his contact with the crew on board the space station and what it led to him to pursue in his further studies in college and also his career.
I grew up out in the country in Indiana. Corn and soybeans were the main crops. I had always been interested in technology and in science. Being out in the rural setting, there wasn't a whole lot of support for this. Space Jam is an annual weekend Boy Scout event, and we do all kinds of technology-based things. We have about 1,000 people that come every year. This is our 7th year doing it, and it's a blast every year. The contact with the International Space Station was one of the driving forces that helped to create Space Jam. In fact, the first Space Jam was really basically only about the contact.
It was a dream of a ham radio operator to say, hey, I want to talk to the astronauts on the space station. How cool could that be? That's the top of the game.
Each year we call up the International Space Station and we give these young kids the opportunity to ask questions to the astronaut.
Is it true that it will take over a year to get to Mars and back over?
It absolutely is true.
The first time that I remember really having this real impression was, I think, the third year we did this. I was in charge of actually calling up the space station and establishing the contact. We were out in the middle of the night in a field, and I said, NA1SS, NA1SS, this is WB9SA, calling for a scheduled contact. Do you copy, over? And I said it again, and all of a sudden, real crisp comes back, WB9SA, this is the International Space Station, and how are you doing tonight? And we're like, oh, this is amazing. I graduated as valedictorian, and I was lucky enough to be admitted to Princeton with a complete scholarship, and I then moved to San Francisco, where I'm a software engineer. So I went from living on a farm to living downtown in San Francisco, writing software for people. It was a really amazing experience to do all that.
Again, that was a look at some of the benefits for humanity that the International Space Station is having. That is a 5-part video series that is available on nasa.gov/station if you would like to check out some of the other stories. They are quite dramatic and impactful if you take a look at them. That one specifically took a look at the ARIS program, which uses the ham radio on board the International Space Station for students and people all over the planet to interact with the expedition crew members on board the station. Some of the other benefit stories include one that we showed yesterday, which is how areas of Mexico, some of the most remote portions of that country, are being impacted by some of the water recycling technology that is used on board the station. There's also the story of a young lady in Canada whose life was dramatically impacted by some of the robotic technology used on board the station, and there are other stories as well, so we invite you to check those out. We're just a few minutes now away from this in-flight event with the crew of Expedition 38, specifically Rick Mastracchio, Koichi Wakata, and Mike Hopkins. They're going to be talking with CBS NewsPath and KOMU TV here on the ground in the United States. That event will begin here in about 2 minutes at 10:20 a.m. Central Time, 11:20 a.m. Eastern Time. During these last couple of minutes, we want to encourage you to follow along with all the different crew members on social media, as well as on nasa.gov/station for the latest happenings that are taking place on board the orbiting complex. Our broadcast here will return tomorrow at 10 a.m. Central Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We'll have an update for you on the crew's activities on board. We'll have an interview with Bob Cabana, who is the current Kennedy Space Center director, was also the commander of STS-88, which is the mission that we're coming up on the anniversary of, that lifted up the first U.S. portion of the International Space Station. Of course, just a few weeks ago, we had the anniversary of Zarya. That was the first Russian segment. But he'll be talking about what it was like to fly that mission, to be the commander of that flight, as well as entering the space station for the first time along with Sergei Krikalev. And that interview will air here on NASA TV tomorrow during our Space Station Live broadcast. So we will stand by to bring you this live in-flight event with the Expedition 38 crew from the International Space Station. That'll begin at 10:20 a.m. Central Time, 11:20 a.m. Eastern Time. They're going to be talking with CBS NewsPath and KOMU TV here in the United States. We'll see you back here tomorrow. This is Mission Control Houston.
About 20 seconds, guys, and framing looks pretty good. Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
We are ready for the event.
CBS News Path, Mission Control Center, Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
ISS, this is CBS at the Kennedy Space Center. How do you hear me?
We hear you loud and clear. Welcome aboard.
Well, thank you very much. It's glad to be here. And I guess, first of all, a belated happy Thanksgiving to you guys. I hope you got some time off, and wondering if you had a good meal up there.
Well, actually, Thanksgiving was a work day for us, but we did have a good meal, a little bit of turkey and stuffing and green beans and all the fixings.
That sounds great. And Mike is a former college football. I'm just going to keep this on the Thanksgiving theme for a minute. I know you're a former college football player, and I assume you've been following your favorite teams. I was just wondering if you guys had a chance to see any of the Alabama-Auburn game up there, either in replay or live.
No, we didn't actually get to see the game live or in replay, but I certainly have been following the news. I saw the results of it. It sounds like it was an incredible ending.
Yeah, it really was. You want to make any predictions about the bowl picture? I'm just wondering if you're okay with Ohio State at number 2, or would you rather see something else come up for the big game? The big game.
Well, I'm a Big Ten guy, so I'm very happy to see Ohio State at number 2. I think they got a great shot at it, and I look forward to them playing in the championship game.
Hey, Rick, Russian Progress ship just showed up, I guess, and understand you all had some gifts on board. I know you don't know what they are, but what are you planning to do for the holidays coming up?
Oh, we didn't know anything about gifts. Thanks for letting us know. We'll have to search that a little bit closer now. For the holidays, of course, being away from our family, the most important thing is we'll get to do some video conferencing with our families and friends and make some phone calls. And, of course, then we'll all get together up here, have a big meal, and just enjoy each other's company.
How about New Year's Eve? You guys got any plans to celebrate that?
Well, New Year's is actually not the Eve, but the New Year's Day is a pretty big celebration day in Japan as well as in many other countries. I am planning to have rice cake. That's a traditional Japanese New Year's Day cuisine, so I'm looking forward to having that, and I'm going to be sharing that with Mike and Rick, whether or not they like it or not.
Well, Koichi, let me ask you another question along a different line. I know you were following Comet ISON, and I guess it went out in a blaze of glory as it went around the sun. We were all following that down here. I know you were planning on shooting that with a high-res 4K camera. I know you saw it on the way in. Can you describe what it looked like, and have you had a chance to get a glimpse of it on the way out or whatever's left of it?
Actually, the last time that I saw using the camera was already about 5 days ago, and it was really small, and I just saw it just before sunrise and just following the Mercury, and it was a very small tail, but it looked really vivid, and I was very lucky to be able to see such a dynamic event of the universe and comet, disappearing, when it goes around the sun. So I just felt that how small we are, and it's we were so lucky to be able to see that event while we were up here on board the station.
How's that camera working out, and what are you going to be doing with it in the coming weeks?
Actually, this past week I've been busy filming a lot of night city lights and also aurora borealis, especially over Canada. We already had like 5 or 6 pads flying over Canada area, and the camera captured really beautiful aurora pictures. So hopefully you'll be able to see that in the very near future.
Well, let me ask you one more real quick. When you've obviously spent a long time, you've been on the station before. What was it like getting back up to speed this time around? You're going to command the next increment, but was it like coming home again, or was it things you had to relearn?
Well, definitely. I flew 4 years ago, but as soon as I arrived here on board the space station, I felt as if I came back to my old office. And Mike is already really up to speed, so he gave us a really good handover. So it was very smooth, much smoother than 4 years ago when I first arrived here.
Rick, how about you? What's it like for a shuttle guy to get more than a couple of weeks in space?
Yeah, it's great. Coming up on 4 weeks, and I was joking with Koichi the other day, about 2 weeks ago. I said, "Don't we have a deorbit burn tomorrow or something?" No, it's great. Settling in for the long run is great. I'm looking forward to working with the scientists on the ground, get some interesting research done. I'm really enjoying taking pictures out the window. I'm seeing things on the planet Earth that I never took the time to see before. So it's great living up here, and I'm glad I have this opportunity.
Mike, how about you? First flight up there. What's the most fun part of living in weightlessness?
Well, that's easy. It's weightlessness itself. For me, just being able to float around all the time has been an incredible experience. Every time you go into a module, you can changing your orientation, looking at things a little bit differently. It's fun. It's fun even when you're working because you're getting to float.
Guys, November 20th, I guess, marked the 15th anniversary of the station's first launch. I was wondering if any of y'all had any thoughts about that? I mean, 15 years is a long time for any spacecraft, but for something as complex as the station, it's quite an achievement.
Yeah, definitely. Yes. I was, Rick is the same, but we were involved in the assembly flights of the International Space Station. Also, I was involved in the development, designing of the ISS hardware, especially for the Japanese Kibo module. And it's really wonderful to see those systems working, that we got involved in the planning and development status. And then right now, I see the science is going on, utilization is going on every day. So it's really great to see this stage of full utilization of the International Space Station.
Boeing just completed a study that pretty much came to the conclusion that you can safely operate the station through 2020, and really with just one or two other areas of concern, probably all the way to 2028, which would be the 30th anniversary of the first launch. What do you guys think about that? I mean, is this a machine you guys think can be maintained for that long? I mean, it just seems like an enormously long time for such a complex vehicle.
Well, the station, we took us 10 years or so to fully construct the space station, for various reasons. I think it's just starting to hit its stride, and I think the space shuttle program, if you look back at that, it's a good example of we learn how to operate these vehicles. We learn how to make them more and more efficient, and we operate them more and more safely every day that we use them. So I think the space station is just hitting its stride, and I have seen no reason we can't go another 5 or 10 years. And if the engineers say the hardware will hold together, we got lots of spare parts up here. We're ready to fix things as necessary. I don't see any reason not to keep going as long as we can.
What about, and I know I hate to ask you guys politics questions, but obviously to operate the station, you got to fund it. And NASA has a lot of stuff on its plate right now competing for those scarce dollars. Well, how do y'all see the value of station and ongoing research, considering that you're starting to pay for an exploration program, you're trying to encourage the development of commercial manned spacecraft, there's deficit concerns and all of that. What is the value of station in that constellation of competing interest? I'll put it like that.
Well, I think there's a whole lot of value to the station. It can range from the fact that this is allowing the crews to gain experience on operating vehicles of this nature. The science that's going on up here is absolutely incredible, not only for future exploration. So all of those programs down the road, there's still a lot of unanswered questions, and we're going to be trying to answer some of those while we're up here, and as well as Earth benefit that's coming out of that. So I think the value added is there, and I think it's certainly a benefit, and it's something that's going to be utilized in order for us to get ready to take that next step.
Well, guys are telling me I'm out of time. Have a great time up there. Look forward to talking with you down the road, and have a good holiday. Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. It was great talking to you, and same. Have a great holiday.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the CBS News Path portion of the event. Please stand by for a voice check from KOMU TV.
Station, this is KOMU TV. How do you hear me?
Well, we hear you loud and clear. Welcome aboard Columbia.
Thank you so much. I would like to start out talking about some of the most recent research and experiments happening on board the ISS if you guys would like to take turns just sharing some of those experiments.
Yeah, you bet. I'll start off by, you're looking at 3 guinea pigs right now. A lot of the research that's going on up here involves us and what happens to the human body and weightlessness. For example, we're doing research on the spinal cord and how it changes in the weightless environment, and so we're doing things like ultrasounds on it. And those ultrasounds are not only telling us what's happening to our spine, but we're developing techniques that can also be used for remote use down on Earth. So from that standpoint, the human research that we're doing not only is going to help us go further out into the universe and the solar system, but is also helping us right there on Earth.
Well, on the Japanese robotics operation side, we have deployed 4 satellites, actually using the Japanese robotic arm and airlock. Usually, when you talk about the satellite deploy, we usually use a rocket and then launch it from the ground. But we first bring it to the station and then using the robotic arm to deploy those small satellites. That's an experimental stage, but this has accomplished a lot. It makes it easier for the developers to package the small satellites and then deliver to orbit. This is one example of engineering experiments that we are doing here.
Yeah, from my perspective, I just arrived 4 weeks ago, so I like to say I'm still getting warmed up on the scientific research, but I have been involved in a few. Right now in the Columbus module, we're checking out a facility called BioLab. And once that is fully operational and up and checked out, we'll be doing experiments with the researchers on the ground in various things. And then there's also some fluid controls experiments that we're doing up here. So it's basically across the whole spectrum of various scientific fields that we're doing research up here. And where it leads is who knows. And that's why we do this research, because great things can come out of it.
All right, and I have actually kept up with some of those experiments through Twitter posts. Astro and Eli and I, Mike, can you talk to me a little bit about your use of social media to communicate with your Twitter following and then your family as well?
Yeah, you bet. To be honest, I really wasn't into the social media before, really about a year before launch. And then I started doing the Twitter. And I've really enjoyed it, actually. It's kind of fun to try and pick out those unique events that are happening up here on station, or unique views that we get to see either of the Earth or of the station itself, and share that with people. And that's a nice media for us to be able to do that. And so it's been quite enjoyable.
And while I have you, you grew up in rural Missouri. Can you talk to me a little bit about maybe a message you would like to send back to folks here in Missouri?
Yeah, I'd love to say hi to everybody in Missouri, and thanks for all the support over the years. I certainly wouldn't have gotten here without all of that. Missouri's a wonderful place. I haven't lived there long term since I finished high school and went off to college, but I certainly miss it, and I enjoy the time when I get to come back home.
All right. Now, some people view the space expeditions as costly and a large expense for the nation. Can you talk to me about how you guys think the work you are doing is really paying off and benefiting everybody down here on Earth?
Yes, of course, it's quite expensive to build a space station and operate it and maintain it. But if you look at the overall cost to the it's less than 1% of the tax dollars goes to NASA. So we're talking, fractions of a penny from every dollar go to NASA. So in the scheme of things, it's not very much compared relative to other programs. But that doesn't mean we should be doing it unless it has good reason. And there have been many studies throughout the years, and I've seen numbers like a 7-to-1 ratio, where NASA, the dollars spent on NASA returned the economy 7 times over. So there's a lot of other studies out there that show similar numbers. But I think there's many other reasons that you can't quantify with just dollar values. Just the fact that as humans, we want to go and explore. We have a lot of questions that we want to get answered, and that's why we do the things we do. That's why we went to the moon. That's why we had the space shuttle program. That's why we're up here doing research on board the International Space Station right now, in order to better life on Earth and in order to help us move further beyond the low Earth orbit. So a lot of good benefits, both monetarily and just, you know, just for the human spirit, if you will.
All right, and if you would like to talk to me a little bit about how people are always curious how you acclimate once you get back on Earth. Have you done anything to prepare for when you are returning to Earth?
Yeah, well, let me first start to say there was an acclimation period when I first got up here. In fact, when I first arrived on station, when I first arrived in orbit, I felt like I was sitting upside down on a ceiling and falling. And that feeling stuck with me for probably the first 24 hours. And so there was certainly a period of time to get acclimated to the weightless environment and realizing that there's not really an up or down and you can just orientate yourself in any way. Since this is my first flight, I haven't landed yet, so I'm going to let one of these two talk about the other way.
Yeah, landing is very interesting. Vestibular system is a little, I don't know, not so used to this 1G environment. So for a day or two, it's somehow I have some balance issues. But after that, you know, you go back to normal. When I first drove my car after landing, I thought I had a really luxurious car because I really felt the suspension got so nice. So, but it disappeared after a few days. And I was so surprised coming up here and going down. Human body can react to a new environment very quickly. We're so flexible, I think.
All right, and you are all spending the holidays in the ISS. What do you miss most besides your family while you are up there?
Yeah, that's a great question, and you know, obviously we do miss our families, but all of our organizations, NASA and JAXA, they do a great job of helping us keep in touch with our families, so that certainly helps through the holiday season. But for me, I would say a couple things. Fresh produce is something that I certainly miss, and then you know, being able to take a shower sometime would be nice.
And Mike, you played football at the University of Illinois. You know, I don't know if you have been keeping up with Missouri football, but now we are advancing. And is there a message you would like to send maybe our Mizzou football team, being a former football player yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, congratulations to just an amazing season. Seasons like this don't come along very often, and so you just have to cherish that moment, not only for the football team, but also for all the fans, everybody out there that loves the game of football. It's just fantastic. Seize this moment because before you know it, it's gone, and you might find yourself floating on the space station and not playing football anymore.
And you had talked about they help you communicate with your families, you know, through the holidays. Just talk to me a little bit more about how often you are able to speak with them and email, through the phone, and just the best way to communicate.
Yeah, it's pretty good setup up here. Obviously, we have email that we could send on a daily basis, but we also have what's called the IP phone, and it's we can make a phone call anytime there's video or KU coverage with the ground, and that's probably more than 50, maybe 60% of the time. And then once a week, we get a video conference with our spouses and our children, or with close friends if we want to. So it's great. It's a great way to keep in touch with the family back home, and even with our friends. And everybody enjoys getting a phone call from space every once in a while.
All right. And one last question, just from a weather standpoint, have you been able to see the phenomenon known as sprites up there? When lightning is above the clouds?
On this flight, I have not seen it yet. In my previous flights on the shuttle, I think I saw sprite, the lightning going up above the clouds. And this time we have really nice video cameras and photo cameras, so hopefully we will be able to capture some of those Sprite events, and I'm looking forward to that opportunity.
All right. Well, thank you for your time, and good luck with the projects the rest of the day.
Thank you very much. It was great talking to you. Great talking to Missouri.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event. Thank you.
And thank you, CBS News Path and KOMU TV. Station Houston, we're resuming operational audio comm.